Welcome to the Region Free Gamers podcast. Today, something for everyone with Front Mission, Blazing Chrome, and Ryuji bringing the moves.
Hell yeah! This is gonna get hot!
Hello everyone, welcome to the Region Free Gamers podcast, the podcast that's fluent in gaming. My name is Paul Romalo, and I'll be your host for today's show. With me today are podcasting Iron Man out of Rhode Island by way of Puerto Rico, Arnaldo Perez.
Hey, it's funny. This is like, I've dubbed this Region Free Gamers After Dark, but I don't have like a beer or anything, and I feel like that's wrong since we're recording at such late hours.
You need to be wasted, for sure.
I'm in a city hotel room in the middle of the red light district, and I felt like that was the only appropriate setting to record this at this hour.
That melancholy voice you're hearing is Ozzy Garcia.
So I guess we're using our last names now. Yeah, Mr. Ozzy Garcia or Mr. Funky Nuts, if you want to.
Yeah, Arnie and I had this conversation on our last recording that you weren't in on. Surprise, last names now.
Well, now you guys know the cat's out of the bag.
That's right. So now the feds that are listening in can finally put
now
our full names in the database.
Should I be worried about immigration now?
Only if you use FaceApp. If you use FaceApp, then yeah, the Russians will combine that with your last name, and they'll just be able to steal your identity and drive your car for you.
I already did. You know what? I knew about the whole FaceApp, Russian thing, and I was like, you know what? Screw you, Russians. I'm gonna use it anyways. Yeah. And so I use it, and I see myself as a very handsome, dapper 60-year-old. And I'm like, you know what? I think I'm going to age pretty well, so I'm going to send this to my mom. I sent it to my mom, and her response was, I heard that there were some Russians hacking into this. Are you going to be okay? And I said, gee, thanks, Mom. I just felt like a complete tool. I was like, I know, and I made a very conscious decision to be hacked by the Russians. So...
Dude, we're being hacked by every country, like especially the USA. Let's not kid ourselves.
Yeah.
I at this point, I'm just accepting it. I'm accepting the fact that I have no privacy whatsoever.
Yeah. We use Instagram. Instagram is like the number one sort of steal your identity.
They're owned by Facebook. They know everything we're doing at every time. There are people that post like 20 stories a day. Do you know how much stuff they can get from that? I mean, the fact that I may be talking about is like, that episode of Game of Thrones was pretty good. Wish I would never say. And all of a sudden, I get a web browser saying, "Hey, do you want to get some Game of Thrones swag?" It's literally like that Dave Chappelle show skit where you're walking around in the mall and it's the internet, and then like people are selling you like goats. It's like, I don't want that. It's weird, man. Technology is weird. I never thought that we would get here so quickly, but right after smartphones became a thing and Facebook became a thing, it's like our technological progress just like kicked into overdrive, and along with that, the risks and dangers of technological progress. So at this point, I don't know if that means I'm a nihilist, but I'm just kind of like accepting it. I mean, I'm all up for like government regulation and, breaking up Facebook and all that crap. But at this point, I know that the Russians are listening in. Look, I have a camera in my home that I use to monitor my dogs because I'm a crazy dog helicopter parent. And, the camera is made in China. And so you see the reviews on Amazon and everywhere they're like, you should look at the terms and conditions. There's like no privacy. And I remember my girlfriend looking at me and says, well, they're complaining here about the terms and conditions, but do we really have anything that we care about sharing? And I'm like...
And that's the thing too. And like, I mean, look, worst case scenario, I'm about halfway through my expected lifespan.
Yeah,
I had a good run.
You had nothing to
I've had a good
lose.
run.
Come on, live it up a little. Do FaceApp. Check yourself out when you're old. Whatever.
No, but that's the thing. That's exactly what I'm saying, though, right? Like, if the world ends in 5 years because our privacy is done, I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah. You had a good run. Look, you had like 200 hours of Atrian Odyssey, just one title. You had like, I don't know, like 100 hours of Persona 4. I'd say that's a life well lived.
Sure.
Yeah. But it's funny, with that camera, like whenever I have one in the kitchen and one in the living room, and whenever, I'm like, I may be kissing my girlfriend or something. It's like, hey, let's go to the room so that, we don't give the Chinese, something to look at. So
I'm just imagining two like NSA guys watching Ozzy like violently screaming at his television as he's playing Vagrant Story.
No,
like,
the Vagrant Story predates the cameras. I think that they would have probably sent me, NSA, if they had listened in on that. So it's funny because we just refer to it as like the Chinese man in the room. We're just like, we're always talking about the Chinese man in the room. And if someone heard it, they would be like, these guys are crazy. But I've just accepted it, that everyone is looking in at me if they care to look at it. If they do, I kind of feel sad for them, and it's kind of like, sucks that you have that job, if it's a job, if you're just getting off on it, then I also kind of feel sad for you.
Dude, my life is so bland. I was pulling weeds today. Like, go nuts, China. Have at it.
It's kind of like payback. It's like, I'm going to do the most mundane thing I can. I'm going to do paper mache, origami. And it's just, they just have to watch me do origami for an entire day. And then you hear like there's a high spike in incidents of like, people going crazy because they've just watched too many origami. Whatever. This is just taking like a real downturn here. Let's steer it back.
I know, right? This is a video game podcast. What's going on?
This is what happens when it's after hours. So for those of you that don't know, it's called after hours now because we usually record in the mornings. We usually make Paul get up at the crack of dawn. Literally,
which you would think is a terrible idea for a podcast. Like,
absolutely terrible. Like, your voice is not there. Your neurons are not firing. You sound like a zombie.
So much caffeine.
There's just a lot of caffeine. And so, because he's in Pacific time, he's 3 hours behind us. So, if he's going to record at 6, he needs to get up at 5. If we record, at 10, then he has to record at 7. So he gets up to 6. But, this time we were testing out a new recording system. So we're like, hey guys, you think we can just record, tonight? And we just went ahead and did it. And so what's easier than just what have you been playing? So
nothing. And what's more interesting? Probably a lot of things.
Yeah.
But this will be a good episode anyway. Because I mean,
like, we're already batting 1,000, dude.
Well, and the funny thing about these episodes is that now that we do these what have you been playing episodes on a semi-regular basis, I hold back like when we're chatting in our little chat group and so on, and I have a game that I've been playing and I want to talk about how great it is or whatever.
So you're like, no, this is gold. This is gold. I need to use this in the podcast.
Yeah, or bronze. When somewhere in that area.
Come on, Paul. Give yourself some credit.
Yeah, like I've got one for you today, Ozzy. I've been holding on to it. You're gonna love it.
Am I gonna blow my mind?
It's gonna. Well, maybe a little bit. Maybe a little bit.
Maybe a step below blow your mind. I don't know what's below your mind. I don't know, because an aneurysm is like blowing your mind, I guess. So
like blowing your mind would be if I told you I was playing something that I had previously said I hated, right? And then suddenly, like for example, if I had started playing Red Dead Redemption 2 and I really hated it, and then suddenly I started liking it. But who would do that?
That would be an Aussie move. So, that's already patented by me. I'm the designated guy on the podcast that eats his words. So please, Paul, don't take that spot from me. I don't have a lot of spots left.
Anyway, before we get to what we've been playing, just some housekeeping here, everyone. As always, if you enjoyed the show, please tell a friend. And a rating and a review on the Apple Podcasts app, we'd really appreciate that. 5 stars, please, or whatever app you listen to. Mm-hmm. And if you've left one already, then thanks so much.
You're awesome.
Really appreciate it. Yeah, you're great.
But listen, beyond that, guys, like we're really, really happy with like the feedback we get from listeners, and particularly on the Instagram community, like. We get to chat quite a bit, and I know we refer to Instagram quite often, and yes, it's owned by Facebook and we have no privacy or whatever, but, we do like using Instagram just because, our community came from there, and we have some really good feedback there, and we have really loyal supporters, which means the fucking world to us. I really, 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 from the bottom of my heart, appreciate it.
Yeah, it's awesome. So Arnie, I interrupted you like 20 times there, so why don't you start us off and tell me what you've been playing?
What Persona game have you been playing, Arnie?
I've been playing all of them, every single one of them. Yeah, that's pretty much what I have to offer today. The big one that I really want to talk about is Persona 4 Dancing, because I played it recently, I beat it recently, so I have thoughts, and I've been meaning to talk to Paul about this, so this is perfect because I know he's played it and beat it as well. But recently, there was a sale on Amazon where they had the Persona 5 and Persona 3 Dancing collection on sale for like $50. So it was like 50% off, and then it also included download code for Persona 4 Dancing. I don't know if that sale's still going on, but if it is, it's a pretty good deal because you get 3 games and some DLC for $50. But
particularly because
Dancing,
they're kind of like games, they're not like packed with content from what I have seen. So
yeah, I mean,
here's
the thing.
Persona 4 Dancing, especially.
Yeah, Persona 4.
Arnie will talk about that.
Yeah, Persona 4 Dancing is probably the most robust of the 3 because the difference here is that Persona 4 Dancing, I was really intrigued in playing it. Everybody seemed to really love it. And everybody was just going on and on about how great it was. I've never been a big rhythm game guy. Like I'm not good at rhythm games, and I don't really like rhythm games, just because I don't find that loop enjoyable. And so I kind of avoided it a little bit, but people kept talking about it, and this was sort of an easy excuse for me to be like, okay, I'll play it for like 10 minutes. I probably won't like it, and then I can just say like I played it and I didn't like it. And then I started playing it.
Just admit it, Arnie. You couldn't figure out that the kick and the punch was all in the mind. That's really what happened there. Sorry, carry on.
No, my dislike of rhythm games travels to, I think, original DDR in arcades. I made a fool of myself multiple times trying to play DDR. I probably fell more than once.
You were probably trying to impress a girlfriend.
Did you fall?
Well, yeah, and also like I feel like every arcade had like a designated DDR guy, like the guy who like takes his shirt off and like holds on to the railing and like goes between both pads,
super baggy pants.
Parachute pants, doing like expert mega mode and like doing everything perfect. So I think that is like the genesis of my dislike of rhythm games.
Well, but DDR is like a really bad example, dude. Like I don't care at all for DDR. My brother got into it for a while, and he had the mat and everything, and I always found it so weird. Maybe it's because I'm Latin, and I'm like, really, this is dancing? This is what you guys call dancing? Like stomping your feet? So
see, I'm just a white dude. I love it.
Yeah. I know. So, but for me, it's like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah. The only rhythm games I ever been able to get into are Rock Band. Like, that was the only rhythm game I semi-enjoyed. And even that, I played bass, because bass was like, I barely ever have to hit more than one note at the same time. It's not as fast as guitar. It's not as complicated as drums. So, bass. Like, I want all the satisfaction of doing well without having to try.
Like, I guess the question, as a Puerto Rican, can you dance?
Oh, no. I have no rhythm. I hate dancing.
That explains it all.
Yeah, it's all in the mind.
Okay, carry on.
Yeah, but so Persona 4, what I discovered fairly quickly when I started playing it was that it doesn't really play as a straight-up rhythm game. It's more so a visual novel with rhythm game mini-games, like, sort of, like, spaced out in between. So every chapter, I think you do, like, maybe 3 dances or something like that. Like, there's not that many dances throughout the entire story of Persona 4 Dancing. There's maybe, like, 30 different, like, dances.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. So I think it's, like, maybe... I want to say it took me, like, 5 to 7 hours to beat it. Like, it's not very long. And most of that is just going through, like, the actual story, like, going through the text and the cutscenes and all that stuff. Because I played on easy, like a coward, because... I didn't want to get stuck and have to do the same dance like a million times.
Sure. There's no shame in easy mode, dude.
I know.
Particularly when you're adult. When you're an adult, it's like screw it.
Oh my god, I just
life is a
I have no
short.
patience for everything. Like when I was a child,
I disagree, but please continue.
when I was a
Yeah,
child,
but
I
that's you,
refused
Paul.
to play easy mode on anything. Because I was like, no, I'll get better. Like I can do this. And now I'm just like, if I'm not 100% confident that I'm going to be good at something, I'm just like, I'll just do easy mode. But actually easy mode was a little too easy. So maybe I should try it on normal mode.
Yeah, that's the thing you
But the
realize with
thing-
easy mode.
Yeah. The thing that I really enjoyed about it was the story was compelling. Like it was a really good Persona story. Like I feel like that same story could have been in the actual Persona 4 game. Like obviously if they removed all the rhythm aspect and the song aspect to it, but the crux of the story was really, really interesting and it sort of hooked me right away. So like 15 minutes into it, I was like, God damn it, I'm gonna play.
So this is the
whole
one where
thing.
where Rise like turns everyone into an idol or something like that.
Yeah, so basically, this is shortly after the end of Persona 4. Rise is sort of making her comeback tour as an idol, and they're going to have this big concert, and she's recruited everybody from the investigation team to be her backup dancers. So that sort of sets the scene of why you've been practicing to dance for, some undetermined amount of time since you last saw the characters. And
Yeah.
then there's another idol group that's gonna be at that same concert, and they all start getting kidnapped, and you have to figure out why they're being kidnapped. And sort of that involves going into another world, not the TV world. They make very clear that's not the TV world. But it's sort of the same, you're going through the same motions. Like you get captured and you get brought into this other world, and the way that you calm the shadows or sort of free the shadows that are trapped in that world is by dancing and expressing your emotions to them through dance. So laid out, it sounds kind of hokey, and it is very hokey, but the beats of the story and how it all comes together and why these things are happening is really interesting.
But my fear is that it feels too much like a retread of Persona 4, and that's I guess one issue that I've had with the many Persona 4 spin-offs like Arena, Multimax, and all those other things that there was a sense in Persona 4, and I know we talk about this game all the time, even though I wasn't on the Persona 4 episode, but when Persona 4 ended, it felt like it had a degree of finality. Like, you've spent the summer, this whole year with these people, and now people will move on to other things. It really felt like, that Vitamin C song that they play at graduation, like, as we go on and we remember, whatever, kind of like a parting of ways. And, when you bring them back at some undetermined amount of time, it just kind of takes the gravity of that goodbye away. And I know,
dude.
I don't know, dude.
Sorry.
No, I don't know. I mean, people want to spend more time with this cast of characters.
Yeah.
Like, they love this cast of characters, and so they can't get enough of them. And I totally get that. But I just fear that it just might feel too much like fan fiction, or worse, that as a sequel, it just feels like you're taking away the emotional core, that the finality of the game gave it.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's exactly that. Like, I am selfish, and I want to play with these characters more, and I want to see more of them. And so I'll take any excuse to, be able to play them again in some form or another. But I think, at least in my mind, Atlas has always done a very good job of making, like, sort of establishing that all these spin-offs are completely separate from Persona 4, whether it be like it's a dream, or it's, a side story, or, these things didn't actually happen, or there's crossover or whatever. Because I think the same thing sort of happens in Persona Q, where, it's the same characters, but I think there's sort of an understanding that these events are not tied into the events of the games that they're based on.
Yeah, and in Persona Q, if I might interrupt you, Arnie, like, Ozzy, what you're saying about the bad fan fiction, I totally get it. And in Persona Q, it kind of is the bad fan fiction. Like, a little, it's quite fan servicey and not really that well written. But Persona 4 dancing is like those characters to a T. It's much better. Like Arnie was saying, the story sounds kind of hokey, and you know what? It is. It's really silly, but if you buy in, it's really kind of the same. It feels the same as Persona 4 is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. I just, even if it feels the same as Persona 4, even if it doesn't sound like fan fiction, let's just say that it's just a straight up sequel. Like I said, you know, you kind of take away the emotional weight of having them say goodbye and them just kind of going their own separate ways. That, you know, it feels like, I don't know, you know, any big like movie, like let's say The Sandlot, you know, and it's like, you know, that at the end they all go their own separate ways, but no, there's a Sandlot 2, and you know, it's, you know, the same characters, they brought the whole gang back, but it's The Sandlot fucking 2. That's what I'm kind of referring to. It's like we didn't need it other than because people love these characters and they make money. You know, I would like to think that it's more because people love these characters, and I think that's why you, Arnie, and Paul play it. But again, it just feels like it cheapens the story and the weight of the story in Persona 4.
I think we'll agree to disagree on this rather than taking it further. What we can all agree on, though, is that nothing ever happens if money's not involved, right?
Oh,
like,
no, I mean, I'm not questioning that.
If they don't think something's going to be profitable, then they're never going to do it, regardless of what the medium is or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, no.
So,
yeah.
Anyway, Arnie.
Yeah. So maybe, Ozzy, you'd enjoy Persona 5 dancing instead, where everything's a dream.
Yeah, and I can't get into those either. I'm sorry.
Legitimately, the whole story is that you're all in a dream because you've been summoned to the Velvet Room to participate in a grand ball where you, like, the implication throughout Persona 5 dancing and Persona 3 dancing, because they're two games that take place at the same time, quote unquote, is that when you're playing Persona 5 dancing, you are supposedly competing against the kids from Persona 3 dancing when they're doing their thing. But it's essentially like what I was telling Paul is that in Persona 4 dancing, there's a lot of story and not as much gameplay. And so what they do is you can play the story mode if you want to see the story. And then if you want to just play the rhythm game, that you have free dance, and in free dance you can, you know, dress them up in silly costumes and do all sorts of stuff, and you can pick whoever you want to dance with and what songs you want to dance to, and you can just play forever. Persona 5 and Persona 3 dancing are the exact opposite, where there basically is no story, and all you do is play songs over and over and over again until you unlock little social scenes, like social cutscenes, by completing certain goals, whether that is beat this many songs with this ranking, or play this many songs on this difficulty, or get this high of a combo, stuff like that. And then the game ends when you've unlocked all of the social cutscenes for the host of the ball that is happening. In Persona 5, it's the two sisters who are your Velvet Room hosts. I forget
Justine
their names.
And Caroline.
Justine and Caroline, that's right. And in Persona 3, it's Margaret. You do, through the little vignettes, you get to see a little bit more of the party members' personality, and you get insights into their, you know, behaviors and thought patterns and stuff like their quirks, basically. It's little funny sort of interludes, but there's nothing there that you couldn't get from actually playing Persona 5. Like, you're not going to find anything in Persona 5 dancing that you're like, oh my god, I'm so glad that I experienced this, because I wouldn't know this super important detail of this character's life.
Yeah.
And you know, and I wasn't even crazy about the Persona 5 character, so it's not like I'm really looking forward to like exploring.
How dare you?
Like, I don't know, dude. I mean, I guess I was spoiled with Persona 4, and so you know, you kind of have a really high bar to live up to at that point.
I will say that I think my favorite part of all the games is the costumes.
Yeah.
Because they're so ridiculous. They range from being really cool to being really ridiculous, and I love everything in between. In Persona 4 dancing, it's a little more annoying because Persona 4 dancing really encourages you to play on higher difficulties, because the rewards you get for beating a song are you get money, And I think the higher difficulty you play on and the better you do, the more money you get per song. And then you spend that money on costumes and accessories. So playing on easy, I didn't get to unlock a whole lot in my first playthrough. But then I think the concept is you kind of grind out the rest of them.
Yeah.
In Persona 5... Mm-hmm.
No, I was going to say grind is not a kind word. It's a fun game.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you're right. You play you enjoy the rhythm aspect rather than the story.
But let me ask you, Arnie, what exactly is the rhythm aspect? Because I get, some rhythm games is like, playing to the beat, with, face buttons, etc. So you have square, triangle, X, but whenever I look at Persona dancing, I can't really make out what the gameplay loop is. Like, I don't exactly know what the mechanics are like, because it seems like there are like buttons going out to the sides and stuff, and I just don't know how it actually works out. So maybe you can elaborate a little bit on that.
Yeah, so I had the same thought because I had seen like screenshots of it, but I never really knew how it worked. And I will admit, I'm not a huge rhythm game fan, as I've said before, but I really like the way they do their rhythm. So basically what it is, it's 2 semicircles. And so on the left side, there's 3 inputs on either side. On the left side, it's the up arrow, the left arrow, or the down arrow. And then on the right side, it's the triangle, the circle, or the X button. And so it's basically split how your controller is split. So whenever something goes to the left, you're going to use your left hand. And whenever something goes to the right, you're using your right hand. And basically you have to hit, these circles go up and they sort of travel through until they go through the circle that marks each input. And then it basically works like any other rhythm game where depending on when you hit the button, you'll get a good, a great, or a perfect. And it has to do with how close the circle is to the input when you hit it.
So, just another technical question. You played it on the PS4, right?
Yes.
Was there any input lag? Because that's the issue with rhythm games nowadays, and probably the biggest reason why rhythm games have kind of died.
Yeah. So for me, there is no input lag, but again, I'm not...
I mean, there is. You just can't tell.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you can't tell. Exactly. But I'm not super good at rhythm games, so maybe Paul would be better to answer that question, because he seems to actually be pretty proficient with these, because I know he platinumed the 2 he's played so far.
Yeah, I don't... Dude,
But you played it on the Vita, right?
No, I played
PS4.
P4 dancing on the Vita, but I played P5 dancing on the PS4. That's a lot of P's and numbers there. But I don't know,
We're talking about parking lots or something.
Yeah, pretty much. This whole thing with input lag, I think, is severely overrated. I think it happened with Parappa, and ever since then, it's just kind of like input lag. Dude, I've experienced none. I experienced, obviously on the Vita, 0, but even on the PS4, I experienced 0, and I play on a projector, hooked up through a receiver, and you'd expect there to be input lag, but not only with dancing games, with virtually any game I play, I don't know, man. I don't really notice anything.
Let me just say that you're correct. A lot of the times it's overblown. I've had a hard time telling input lag in any game really, but it is there, and for some, I guess, consoles or some games in particular, it's very noticeable. For example, without going into too much of a digression, like I remember I was playing Super Metroid on the original Super Nintendo, and that was perfectly fine. I was playing it on a PVM, so there's 0 input lag there. And then I played it on the SNES Classic, and it's when you compare one to the other that you can really start to feel, I wouldn't have noticed this, but for the fact that I just played this on a TV with no input lag.
Good point.
And the thing is, it's imperceptible if you don't know what the baseline is.
Yeah.
And I remember, having just played Super Metroid on the PVM, I was just thinking, it feels sluggish. Like, I can play this, but it's actively making me frustrated because I just don't feel like it feels in, a traditional, tube TV, CRT.
Yeah.
So it's there. It's just we don't really have a baseline to compare it to, and some games are better than others at kind of off-putting. Not only some games, some TVs are better than others.
Yeah. I mean, I think the question's fair regardless, because if there's a game genre where it matters and you'll notice it, it's rhythm games.
Yeah, and there's another element of that. I'm sorry to interrupt you, sorry to cut you off, honey. There's another element to that, which is that, developers know that input lag is a thing. And so I think they bake that into the game. And so you might be thinking that you're hitting it right on time and everything. And I imagine that this had to happen, like with harmonics and Rock Band and Guitar Hero and all those things. And they just kind of bake in a kind of grace period, where you can click it and it feels like, oh, you did it. And you may have done it a little bit early, you may have done it a little bit late. Yeah. But it just kind of gives you like a visual feedback of like, no, you did it perfectly.
At least in the lower difficulties, I can tell you that it definitely exists.
Okay.
Well, even
like in normal and easy, I know for a fact that exists. I don't know about the higher difficulties.
It's all the same. It's all the same.
Okay.
And they do the same thing in fighting games. Like one of the reasons the original Street Fighter was such a pain in the ass to pull off special moves there is because you had one frame. But, they make it a little bit more generous in the other games, and I would imagine it's similar for rhythm. Like, you can't be perfect. And so, like you said, Ozzy, they bake in a little bit of a buffer there. And it's a little bit more forgiving and therefore more fun, right? Like and yeah, it's tough, man. The whole input lag question, that's a tough one to answer. Like, if you've been gaming on one setup for years and you're kind of attuned to when to press buttons to make your characters do whatever you want to do in whatever game, it's kind of hard to, without a comparison.
Yeah, and let me just say that one of the more recent games that had some serious input lag issues, and I'm not going to get into this too much because I know someone else wants to talk about this in a later show, is Bloodstained. And Bloodstained is like, it's actually one of the more egregious examples where it's like you press the button and it takes it's milliseconds really, but you notice it. And so jumps feel very heavy, because it just takes you more time than it should in order for the character to respond. Yeah. And in a game like that, it's an issue, because you're trying to react to enemies on screen, etc. And it's just the game kind of failing you.
Yeah.
So I think
but that's a digression. I'm sorry.
I think overall, what I would say is, unless you're a big rhythm game fan or a big Persona fan, like a big Persona soundtrack fan specifically, I think if you're gonna get any of these, get Persona 4. You don't really need to play Persona 5 or Persona 3 Dancing unless you really like rhythm games or you really like the Persona soundtrack, because there are a bunch, like, the cool thing about all these games is that they don't just play you the soundtrack, they play you remixes of the soundtrack songs. So it's really cool to see like all these different forms of these songs that you really like, especially in Persona 4 and 5's case for me. Then again, Persona 5 Dancing only has one version of Beneath the Mask, which is probably the best song on that soundtrack. So that's automatically a strike against it.
Yeah, but let me just say, the thing with Beneath the Mask is that the English pronunciations just really throw me off.
Yeah.
And it's been impossible to not tell. So I usually put it on instrumental because I'm just like, I can't deal with like the English pronunciations. Like, it sounds like she's saying, I'm a chef too,
Yeah.
It's just like, what the hell does that mean? And she's saying, I'm a shapeshifter.
Yeah.
But anyways, I digress.
No, I had to look it up, dude. I had to look up what the lyrics were because I just could not. Her accent, great voice. But
A for effort, great voice.
But it's kind of a miss, man. Like, I think if you're gonna have English lyrics, like, you gotta probably hire a native English speaker at least.
Yeah.
But Paul, I want to know how you feel about it because I know you've played these games as well. Like, would you agree with that or?
Yeah, I agree. Like, I like rhythm games, generally speaking. I love Persona, so for me it was a really easy purchase. But if you don't like either one of those things, I mean,
it's a niche within a niche, really.
It really is.
It's not going to move the needle for you if you're not already a fan of one of the two things that are happening in this game.
Yeah, but with that said, like, if you are, or better yet, if you're a fan of both like I am,
oh yeah,
I loved it, man, because like the fact of the matter is the music's great. You tap your feet to it as you're playing and it just makes you smile. And that's that's kind of what it's all about.
Yeah.
Isn't that really the point of gaming, Paul?
It really is, Ozzy.
So how many Arnie, how many Brady's would you give it?
I mean, in our backwards universe where less Brady's is better, I guess I technically give it like 40 Brady's out of 100.
Oh man, 40 Brady's. That's pretty I mean, but which one are you talking about? Persona 4, Persona 5?
Probably Persona 5 and 3. And then Persona 4, because it has such a good story, I'd probably give it like 25 Brady's.
25 Brady's. I like that, because here at Region Free Gamers we use all the Brady's, not just the top Brady's. Good to hear that. So should we take a break, guys?
Yeah, let's take a quick break. When we come back, Ozzy's gonna tell us what he's been playing. All right, everyone, and we're back. So, Ozzy, tell me what you've been playing.
So I feel like I am in Arnie's place here, because I'm not only playing a Nintendo DS game, but I'm also playing a strategy RPG. So I kind of feel slightly Puerto Rican right now. By way of Rhode Island. To be.
But how do you feel about Sonic the Hedgehog?
Fuck that guy.
Yeah, story checks out.
Yeah, so I think I may have done a Freaky Friday with Arnie. But no, guys, can we just say that the Nintendo DS was a very low key, amazing strategy RPG machine, or just really a strategy. Good. Yeah, it was. It just had so many good strategy games. I mean, Paul, you had your Atrian Odysseys, which is not strategy, but it's different.
No, dude, but there's tons others. I can list them off if you like.
No. That would not make for good podcasting. But no, what I have been playing is a game that I have been wanting to play ever since I was a wee lad coming to this country in a boat. Except it didn't come on a boat. I came on a plane.
Oh, look at you, Mr. Fancy over here.
I know, right?
Thankfully, there were many speedboat attempts and rafts, but those didn't work out, thankfully. And so I wanted to play all my life. I've been wanting to play, well, not literally all my life, but I wanted to play Front Mission. And Front Mission is a series that I have always been interested in, because when I came here, Front Mission 3 was released, and at that time, Squaresoft was pretty massive, as I think we explained on our Squaresoft episode. Go listen to that. And, that was the first localized Front Mission game in the West, and I have no clue why more Front Mission games were not localized. I think it's the same reason why, as we went into it, more Fire Emblem games were not localized up to that point. I just don't think that Japanese publishers really trusted the West with strategy RPGs. They were just nah, it's too many brain cells for the West. They're not smart like us, or something along those lines. And so when I first started getting into gaming over here, and I saw the huge world of games out there was Front Mission 3, and I was always really curious about it. But, over the years, I've become this kind of guy that kind of wants to look at things from the very beginning. Now, that doesn't mean I'm going to play Fire Emblem, Genealogy of the Holy Sword, or whatever that was called.
Holy War, Ozzy. We just did an episode on it.
I know, dude. I know, and I missed it. But I did want to play the original Front Mission because it had so crisp looking sprites, and it has such amazing mech designs, and they're called Wansers. And Wansers are like, a shortened version of Wonder Panzers, which they're literally called walking tanks in German. And so Wansers are kind of like their version of mechs, and they're just like literally like war machines. And it's just a really cool setting. And also the fact that the original box art and all the art for the original front mission was done by Yoshitaka Amano. And if you know any Yoshitaka Amano art, which is basically almost all of Final Fantasy, you know that it's pretty freaking amazing. And so it doesn't quite gel with the style of the game, especially compared with the Wanzer designs, which are different. But it's still Yoshitaka Amano, so I'll be, eating it up. And so I was finally able, to get into the first one because I realized that it had been remade for the PlayStation and then ported over to the Nintendo DS. And, strangely enough, that was only the third front mission game localized in the West at the time, which is absolutely absurd. Like there haven't been that many front mission games localized. Yeah. And especially Front Mission 2 and Front Mission 5, which are supposed to be the best games in the series, those are the ones that haven't been localized at all. There's no way to play them in the West other than through fans translations. And so I finally got to play Front Mission 1, and let me say, I'm loving it. I'm not huge into strategy RPGs. I love my Fire Emblem, and I love, playing some strategy games here and there. I played a hell of a lot of Disgaea, way too much Disgaea until I realized that Disgaea is like...
It's a giant black hole.
It's a black
hole. And so I stopped playing Disgaea because I wanted my life back. But, Front Mission, I guess because of... the mech, motif, and also the fact that the story seems very politically driven and it feels very realpolitik. And just as a way of background, like I come from an international relations background. What I wanted to do with my life was diplomacy. I was going to take the Foreign Service Officer exam, and then that didn't work out because, reasons. And so
because you became a podcaster.
I became a podcaster, and so I dropped everything right then and there.
You did something even more prestigious.
Even more prestigious, yeah. And so but I've always loved the idea of realpolitik and kind of following the geopolitical kind of intrigue, that's going on in the world. And this game really has like a very Cold War type of feel, except it's not the Cold War. Like you don't have like Russia or the Soviet Union, it's like basically an alignment, like an alliance of countries. And so the OCU is kind of like the Oceanic Alliance, essentially. So you have like Japan, China, Australia and stuff. And those are like the ones that you play as. And then I think it's the USN, which it's basically the US. And the United States of the new continent. But it's not only the US, it's like Canada and stuff like that, that whole territory. And then there's also like the European Union and stuff like that. And so basically the first game is just like this conflict on this one island, between these two superpowers, kind of like trying to vie for control. And within literally like the first 3 minutes of the game, like your fiance gets killed in a mission. But it's a really cool story because it really gets into like the psychology of war, and you kind of, after that incident happens, like the whole government like sweeps it under the rug, because they don't want to admit that they were like in hostile territory and stuff. And so, the person that you play at, the one that had his fiance killed, he kind of starts like fighting in an arena. He kind of like becomes like Jean-Claude Van Damme, fighting for money and stuff.
Wow.
And he gets picked up by a band of mercenaries, and they're just like, look, dude, like, we know what happened on this island. We know what really happened. Maybe you can get like your revenge. So we're like a ragtag crew of like mercenaries, and they're paying us to do this. Why don't you join us? Yeah. And so, that's basically the setup of the game. And I have a lot to go on the game, but it's really drawn me in, to be honest. And it's kind of like the perfect pick up and play game because, you can just, put some time into it, play a battle, probably battles last you like maybe like 45 minutes, so I guess it's not a pick up and play game. But,
that sounds about right for a strategy RPG.
Yeah, but it's about right for a strategy RPG. So
and I'm assuming is there like quick save options and stuff so you can stop in the middle of a map, or
there are.
Okay.
Yeah, on the DS there are, and that's another thing about strategy RPG games. I much rather play them on a mobile, on a handheld. It's just, they're just much more convenient there. Whenever I have to play them on a console, it just feels like I'm tied to my TV and it just takes too much time. And, you know, I guess that's one of the downsides of this game. You know, like the inventory management is massive. Like we're talking real micromanaging. So I don't know if ever any of you guys have played the Armored Core series, but it's essentially that. Yeah. Except you have to manage your whole team. Like you have to like modify and you know upgrade your whole team. And so you have 4 different things. You have, you know, the head. I mean the body, the left arm, the right arm, and the legs. And then you have the shoulder weapons, you know, and you have a weapon for each arm. Yeah. So it's very customizable, and you can change the colors. It's very, very modifiable. So it, you know, you realize the other day, I realized like I had spent like 40 minutes just on menus, like just going in and out of menus, just like trying to optimize my build, you know, and that's not something I typically do because usually that bores me to tear. But it's robots, so I'm willing to forgive a lot with robots. But I guess some people might not like that. You know, it's a game that I'm pretty sure in later installments, they probably fixed a lot of that. You know, like, if you really wanted to be nitpicky, it could probably use an optimize button, you know, just like, hey, just optimize my gear, and that's about it. But, you know, it released in 1995, so I don't think that was really a thing back then. Back then, people just had a lot of time. Anyways, I've been talking too long, so I'll kick it back up to you guys.
Here's the thing. I agree with you. Like, the DS was sort of that little machine that they started putting a lot of strategy games on. Like, obviously, you got your Advance Wars and your Fire Emblems. There was a Final Fantasy Tactics on there. There's a Valkyrie Profile strategy RPG. You know, so it's everywhere. And it really works well for these kinds of games. The thing you just told me with the customization and stuff, that's where you lose me completely.
Oh, really?
Honestly, because it's not that I don't like that stuff. It's just that, especially in
I thought you'd be completely
RPGs,
into that, dude.
It really depends, because if it's a situation where, say, like in Ring of Red, you do a little bit of that. It's not customizing the robots themselves, but you assign like different units that have abilities to them. But in Ring of Red, it's manageable because you only use like main characters. Like I think there's like 7 or 8 of them, and that's all. But for example, something like Tactics Ogre, when every single unit you buy or pick up, you have to customize and equip gear on them and like do all the different that gets to be too much at later points in the game.
Let me give you a few more buzzwords, maybe see if I can try to convince you. There's something like the weapons triangle in the game.
Okay.
So it's very inspired by Fire Emblem.
Yeah.
So maybe you'll dig that.
Yeah. You know. I mean, that's the thing is for me the thing is that like, and I the reason I'm measuring my words here is because I think Final Fantasy Tactics is also a little bit like that, and I know that Paul really loves that game where you have
Watch yourself.
Yeah. You have a lot of customizability. There's a lot of job customizability you can do and like tweaking
it's
and all
the
that stuff.
Matsuno school of strategy RPGs.
Yes.
Like, just
and to me, that just sort of gets like in the early goings, it's very fun because you can sort of do a bunch of things. But as your party grows and your options grow, it just feels a bit overwhelming towards the end.
I'm just terrified when I have 20 characters on my squad.
That's what I'm saying.
That's when I'm really gonna start like, okay, either I stay with this or I just drop it.
Yeah.
My concern is always that I'm doing something wrong, and then if I go into a map, I spend like 30 minutes or 40 minutes playing this map, I end up losing, then I gotta go back, then I gotta reassess, you know, what do I need to change, and then I gotta go through everybody and make sure.
I would not be that concerned with that. I would not be that concerned with that because usually you have enough units.
Okay.
You know, where you can make some mistakes. And trust me, I made some mistake. And the cool thing about the game is that, you know, each one of those pieces, those 4 pieces, body, left arm, right arm, legs, they have their own health bar. And so, there's this weird dynamic that when they attack you, you're like, the only way that you fully die is if the body has 0 health left. But if you lose your left arm, that means that you can't use that arm anymore. So the weapon that you had on that arm is gone.
Okay.
Same with the right arm. If you lose your legs, you just can't move. I mean, I would assume so. Yeah. And you can't evade. But the thing is, when you're like really down on your life and you're like, oh, I really hope that they don't like knock my body away. You play defend and you just hope to God that they just like target, or they just hit your arm or something. And so
is there permadeath in this game?
I don't think so. No. I don't think so. And especially, you get like bonuses for like, not losing, your Wenzers in battle.
Okay.
So no, I don't think there is. And I'm honestly glad for that, because that means I could rest easy losing my units.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's fun because it's just unpredictable in the way that you have 4 different health bars to take care of.
Yeah.
But it is complex. It is complex. Yeah. And the way that I got reacquainted with the games was because it was designed by this guy called Toshiro Tsushida. He, was kind of like the father of the game. And he also did another series called Arc the Lad, which is also kind of a strategy RPG series. And so I started playing that through the PSN. And so I saw that he had also done the Front Mission series. And I was like, okay, I finally had to get around to playing this series. But it's really fun. And the other thing about it is that, in the DS version and the PS1 version, you can actually play as the other side. So there are 2 campaigns, one for the OCU and one for the USN. So you can see the campaign from another perspective, which I'm always a sucker for that, kind of seeing like, how the ones that you viewed as the enemies kind of viewed you and their own struggles, etc.
If it's well written, that's a really great hook.
No, and let me tell you, the game is very well written. Like, so as far as I have seen, it's very good. It doesn't feel cheesy, it doesn't feel cliched, it doesn't feel too anime. I think that, it has potential to be a real favorite for me. And, if it works out, then I'll play the fan translation of the Front Mission 2, and that one came out on the PS1. And, eventually I'll get around to Front Mission 3, which I have on the PlayStation Network. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good game. I really dig it. I would recommend it. If it doesn't work out for you, then, try something else. I don't know.
There's a few other games out there.
But I dug it, so now I can get out of my my Arnie body and go back to my own regular body.
I'm glad you did, because it's funny you mentioned the fan translation for Front Mission 2. I actually started playing Front Mission 2 long time ago, and I had like a written translation as I went along. And like you, Ozzy, I found the customized, like there was a lot of customization, and I love that shit. But even for Front Mission 2, I was like, whoa it this is a lot. And so when you combine that with the fact that, I was reading from pages written by someone else and so on, like it didn't quite do it for me. But if you like Front Mission on the DS, and frankly the DS is a superior machine for strategy RPGs anyway compared to the PS1, I'm intrigued now.
Yeah, I just hope that Square, with their newfound sense of digging up old classics or old games, kind of brings it to the Switch. I would love, for them to do the same thing they did with Romancing Saga. I mean, God knows that Romancing Saga is much less qualified to be ported to the West than Front Mission. I mean, I love Akitoshi Kawazu and I love the Saga series, but to be honest, I mean, those games are very, very esoteric. They're just completely arcane.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Romancing Saga 2, I don't know how well that sold, but I must imagine that your regular run-of-the-mill gamer was not, jumping in joy when they saw Romancing Saga 2.
Yeah.
But Front Mission, it has the possibility of having some mainstream appeal. I know it's kind of like a multimedia thing, and, the way that it works, like for all the games, is that they kind of have like a general storyline, but all the games are self-contained. So I really kind of dig that it's kind of like a serial, that you kind of watch different seasons of, etc.
Yeah.
And one more thing, if that piques your interest, Yoko Shimomura actually does the soundtrack, and it's a very good soundtrack.
Cool.
So that's another thing in its favor. So so far I would give it 20 Brady's out of 100.
All right, man. What else?
And the other thing is one that I am really, really, really excited to talk about, because that is Blazing Chrome.
Yes. Okay, please tell me all about it.
Was that the one that you were playing, Paul?
No, but I was kind of scrambling at the last second for reasons that we talked about before the show. I'm like, oh my god, I need something else, because I can't just talk about Etrian Odyssey every time we do this episode. And I was looking.
I talk about Persona pretty much every time we do this.
It's true, but in different forms. You at least have
That's
that
true.
going for you.
But guys, I mean, I really, I have come to you to spread the good word of the Blazing Chrome.
Oh, I'm ready to hear it.
Because if there was ever a game that was lost in time and was built, let's say, in 1995, and then many years later, in the year of our Lord 2019, they happened to discover it again, and you turn out that it was a collaboration between Konami and SNK, and it was released on a Capcom CPS3 board, then this game is it, guys. This is literally the game I've been wanting to play after Contra 3. Like, screw Contra 4. Like, not even Contra 4 gets up to the levels of what this game achieves. And I'm really want to be careful about overselling it, because at the end of the day, it's kind of a short game. Like, you have to just really dig what you're playing, but it's a short game. Like, it's 4 levels, it knows what it does, and that's it.
Awesome.
But it has everything. Literally everything. Like, I was playing and I was like jumping for joy. I was like, oh my god. Because it, like, I don't know how, but they captured every feel. Like, literally, it's a mashup between Contra 3 and Metal Slug 1. Like, it's a perfect mashup with like a little bit of Gunstar, not too much, but just a little bit of Gunstar, and a little bit of Cybernator as well. So it's like, and maybe like a little bit of Battletoads. Let's just throw that in. Why not? And so, the way that Joy Masher, which is a Brazilian team, they did it. It's like, how a lot of games, when they try to go for the old school look or they play 2D, they just don't feel quite right. Like, what they're going for, in terms of the retro art style, but there's something, like, there's an uncanny valley that exists where you're like, this is not really retro. Like, this is not really something that could have been achieved back in the day. Like, to me, there's like the illusion, the magic of thinking that this is a game from 1995 was just never lost. Like, it never goes away. And that's a big part of it, is because they just painstakingly drew every single sprite. Like, it takes hard work, and that's probably the reason why it's only 4 levels, because every single level is just painstakingly detailed with sprites and the sprite movements and the bosses, and it's kind of like a boss rush, really. You kind of go, from, stage to stage, just kind of like beating bosses. I think there's like 20 bosses. And dude, and it has like multiplayer, and, I was really looking forward to this game because Joy Masher, the first game I played from them was this game called Oniken. And I first played it like back in 2016, and when I played that game, it was like a perfect mixture of Ninja Gaiden, Shatterhand, and some other awesome game I can't remember the name of right now. And I was like, these guys know what they're doing. Like, these guys are not just giving lip service to, retro. And another thing I hate about this whole retro-inspired movement is how self-referential it all is. Oh my god, look, we're retro. Like, this was so silly back then.
Yeah.
Like, I fucking don't care for that anymore. Like, stop. That's not you being funny. That's just being obnoxious. But these guys are not doing that. They're just like, like in Contra 3, let's attack aggressively. Like, that's exactly how it is over here. It's like, fuck this. I'm here to kick ass and chew bubblegum. Like, they're just like, and you choose the first 2 characters are like a kind of like female, kind of Contra character. And then the other guy is a robot. So you're playing, like the whole thing, the enemies are robots. And this is kind of like a repurposed robot. And they call them microwaves or toasters. They call them toasters. And it's just very endearing, so it has like a little bit of Contra hardcore in it as well. And so when you beat the game and you do some unlockables, you can like unlock 2 other characters. And one of them plays exactly like Strider Hiryu. So it just completely changes up the game. And so when you mix and match, playing co-op, I don't know, I'm at a loss for words. It's everything that I wanted. Like, a friend of mine asked me, should I get it? And I was like, look, pick it up, play with your brother, and for a moment, you're gonna be back in 1995 playing like Super Nintendo with him. Like, it really captures that feeling. And for us that are so big on retro, like, that's completely invaluable. I tip my hat to these guys and girls. They did a fantastic job. I really want to see more from them. Their other game is also on the Switch. It's called Odallus, and that's a mixture of Castlevania and Demon's Crest. So, cool. Fantastic game. Fantastic game. Also has terrific sprite work. They've just gotten sprite work down pat. It's just perfect. And so you can get those games on the Switch for like $7.99. Odallus and Oniken. But support Blazing Chrome. Like, seriously, it's a freaking awesome game. And at the very least, at least watch the trailer, like the launch trailer, and just bask in the glory of that. So anyways, I've gushed long enough here.
But like in one sitting though, how long would it take to finish it?
Probably like a little bit, like probably like an hour and a half.
Oh wow. 4 levels, an hour and a half?
Yeah. Probably like an hour and a half.
Cool.
So I've actually never been in the last level, the 4th level, so I'm still kind of there. So that's what I've seen people kind of refer to online, that's about the time it takes.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it sounds like
I stopped playing it after a certain level because I was like, I want to wait for my friend to come here so I can just play a co-op with him because it feels like the type of game. And I was like, I'm kind of playing it by myself and I'm super enjoying it, but it's like I would have so much more fun just playing it with a buddy. Yeah. You were saying, Arnie?
Oh, I was just gonna say, it sounds really fun. It sounds like a nice appetizer to the true heir to the Contra throne, Contra RoCore, to be coming out September 24th, 2019. Use our special offer code RFG. I don't know where I was going with this joke.
They can't all be winners.
If I was Konami right now and I had, I don't know.
Don't you play as a gorilla in that game or something?
Yeah. If I had any interest or dignity, I would just hire these guys. I would just trash that. I would just trash that RoCore game and just hire these guys. I don't know why, they're making a Contra game, that's a dual stick shooter and also that plays really, really slow. It just looks ugly as sin.
It does
that's
not
the
look
real sin
very
there.
good. Yeah.
Yeah. It just looks ugly as
well,
hell.
I was going to say, I think, Paul, I think what you were going to say is that's the real like sin that game committed, because Contra is such a stylish game. Like, it's, to me at least, Contra's always been kind of like really good to look at, it's always been really cool to look at. It's always been kind of stylish, especially something like Neo Contra or something like that. So to have a Contra game, air quotes, that's not nice to look at is a problem.
It's really
but then again, it's Konami we're talking about here, so who the hell knows what they're doing?
Right?
But no, I mean, like, even like, we've gone through the Contra episode and we've talked about how Contra 3 has, those overhead levels and that they're crap. Blazing Chrome has its own version of the overhead levels, but they're not overhead levels. Like, imagine the level in Contra 1 where you're like storming the base and you have to move from left to right. Except here you're basically going down like a shaft with a jetpack, and everything is just rotating around you. And they do all of this with super scalar sprites. It's like almost like none of it really is done with polygons. There are a few sections done with polygons, but that's just a very tiny section of it. So it's just like from a technical standpoint, I'm just amazed. It just blows my mind that they were able to achieve so much, and particularly since it's a small team, so I don't know what those guys are cooking there, but it's really amazing what they built.
Well, good on them, man. I'm gonna get it next week. I'm convinced. I don't even know why. I almost bought it today. Like, I was kind of just going through the Switch store because you know how it is, man. Like, or maybe you don't, but like I go to the Switch store and I see something, and if it's more than like 20 Canadian rupees, then I'm like, I don't know, but maybe I'll wait on it. So like the two that I've been waiting on.
How much in Canadian is it?
Pardon?
How much in Canadian dollars is it?
Well, that's what I'm saying, right? Like it's like $20 Canadian. So I mean, it's like $5
That's not
for
bad,
you guys.
dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not bad, dude.
I know, but like even 20 still is for me. I'm like, I have to always think twice, which makes no sense.
You're sounding too much like Arnie, man.
You're right.
Too much like
I am,
Arnie.
but
Like,
I mean,
Listen, 20 Canadian dollars. What's that? Like 3 Bud Lights or something?
Exactly.
you're gonna get a lot more out of this than 3 Bud Lights. Trust me. Or Budweiser, for that matter.
But yeah, I've been looking at Blazing Chrome and Slay the Spire. Like, those are the two games that I've been wanting to buy.
Slay the Spire, I've heard really good things about.
I know,
too.
me too.
Yeah.
It's honestly, it looks like it's a game that was just made for me, but also Blazing Chrome. And it's like, I can't wait any longer. I got to get Blazing Chrome. This is stupid. What am I waiting
and the
for?
thing is, play it with a friend if you can.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because it's gonna make a huge difference. Like I'm really fed up nowadays with this whole retro shtick of the super deformed sprites, that don't really have any artistry behind them. I can't deal with that anymore. Like, do the hard work and create an actual aesthetic, and put in the work of actually designing a pleasant looking sprite. It's this whole thing like, oh, it's supposed to be super deformed, and it's basically like 4 blocks put together. It's like, whoa, that's supposed to be his gun, that little sprite over there. I can't do that crap anymore. So that, and like I said, that whole self-referential humor just like drives me nuts, and usually they go hand in hand. So this game, I'm glad to say, does none of that. So really, don't let this game pass you by. If you're listening and you don't know about Blazing Chrome, talk to me. I'll walk you in, through the process, and you'll come up fine. You'll be
Basically,
baptized in the waters of fire.
Gunpoint.
You'll be baptized in the waters of fire. So it's great. I just had that to say.
Awesome, cool, man. Well, let's take a quick break. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. When we come back, I'll talk about what I've been playing. Okay, everyone, and we're back. And I'm going to start off with something I've been playing. And the reason I started playing it was because on a previous episode, Ozzy shamed me. He shamed me for not having played this game before.
But then don't I do that almost like every time? I think I've done that quite a few times.
Not only that, but you also shame me for the games that I do play. So
yes,
there's a big circle of shaming around you, actually.
I'm looking out for you, Paul.
Listen,
I'm looking out for your well interest.
in something I rarely do, which is defend Ozzy in any way, shape, or form. You also played like 500 hours of Etrian Odyssey.
Oh yeah.
And like every other episode of the show, you're like, I need to stop playing long games and start,
Also, Arnie, why would you defend me? Like that's a terrible thing to do. Just don't.
And that's why you shouldn't defend him. That phrase right there. Where he shits on you for doing a nice thing. But anyway, I was actually
I shamed you.
What's that?
So I shamed you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But since you do it so often, like I was going to ask you if you remember or you can think of which game I'm talking about, but since there's so many, I guess you're not going to be able to pin it down. But yeah, I recently picked up Gradius V.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, I did. I remember the particular point, and I just I'm glad that you amended it. You atoned for your sins, because honestly, that was an egregious. Honestly, dude, like seriously, like Gradius 5.
I know.
I'm shaming you right now.
I know. And you should.
Right now.
And you should.
Yes.
But not too much, because I fucking own it now, okay? So relax.
Just give me a little bit more. All right,
let me tell you,
awesome,
though.
dude. That's
This is the
awesome.
part
It's a
where he
great
turns
game,
around,
man.
he's like, and I own it now, and it sucks.
Nah, it's a good game, dude.
Nah, man,
it's like
it's better than
treasure.
good. Yeah,
It's hard as fucking balls. It's fucking hard.
Yeah.
But it's good.
Yeah,
it's really
it's
good.
harder than I expected. But let me tell you, man, for a PlayStation 2 game, like I get PlayStation 2 games now, and I usually play them on the original hardware. I'm gonna take your advice, Ozzy, for Metal Gear 3 and play that on the HD remix, because there's some gameplay tweaks that you mentioned. But for the most part, for PlayStation 2 games, I'll try and play them on the original hardware, just because that's how I roll.
Well,
And-
you can just a quick aside. You can just play Subsistence on the original PS2, and you would get those gameplay tweaks as well.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. I mean, Subsistence shouldn't be too expensive.
In any case, I already got it for the PS3, so this is a bridge we've already crossed. But
All right.
but Gradius 5, on the other hand,
Burn that bridge.
for a game on the PS2, dude, it looks really good. Like
Yeah,
I was
the
actually
polygonal
shocked.
work is really good. Yeah,
like it doesn't have that kind of like haze that a lot of PlayStation 2
Yeah.
games have. It's very clear. It looks really, really good. And I was shocked with that at first. And then like the gameplay, solid. It's Gradius, right? Like, exactly what to expect. And even though it's difficult, it's not like old school difficult where, with those old 8-bit and 16-bit shoot 'em ups, you die and then you lose all your weapons.
Yeah,
And then you come back and you have your pea shooter and it's like, well, what the fuck am I supposed to do now, right?
Yeah.
Gradius 5 doesn't do that. You still get your options back. So if you've collected 3 options, the little orbs that float around your ship that also fire. And I still call them options. In Gradius 5, they translated them into multiples. But I don't know, man. They're options to me.
I believe in order to keep your cred as a retro gamer, you're supposed to call them options.
I you know what, dude? I agree. I
think your license
subconsciously
gets rescinded otherwise.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's a game that's more about, unlike other games like bullet hell shooters, like it has a little bit of bullet hell in it, because that was just the flavor of the day back then. But it's more about memorization, and kind of clearing the stage and perfectly executing a run.
Yeah.
And that's a part I find really hard, because the run is really hard. But most of the time, like the stage is closing in on you, and you just have to make it through. And it makes for a very interesting and very tense play session.
Yes, it really does. And that's good. Like that's what I like personally. And like I said, even though it's difficult, it doesn't feel like impossible, right? And it doesn't have that bullet hell feel like you were saying. Like some parts, yeah, but it feels very balanced and kind of old school in a good way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, it's treasure, at this point. And it's interesting that the graphics look so good, because Treasure was never good at doing 3D graphics very well.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of like, when we talked about Sin and Punishment Star Successor, that one surprised you at how good it was. Like, when Treasure is stuck to a 2D plane, they can do amazing things. Like, Gradius, yes, is polygonal graphics, but it's stuck to a 2D plane. It's the moment that they would go into a 3D plane and use that C-axis that, they would start having issues with, like, camera and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But this really plays to their strengths. So, yeah, I mean, it's one of their last great games. I would say Star Successor was their last great game, but this one was, just a few years earlier than that.
Yeah, I would say Star Successor, but what can I say, man? And that laser, like when you get the laser, dude, the laser looks really fucking good. Like there's just something about like the options flying around you, firing the laser. I don't know, man. It looks really awesome. the beginning of the second stage, some kind of, and I haven't gone through the instruction book to read the story yet. But at the beginning of the second stage, or sometime during the second stage anyway, some kind of warp opens up and another Vic Viper shows up to help you.
Yeah.
And you know what? Like, I don't really know what's going on, but it's still friggin' cool, man. Like, when Vic Viper shows up and he's like, hey, this is Vic Viper. We're gonna both need to go in. And like the music, really kicks in. And I'm like, fuck,
it's epic,
yes.
Yeah, it's epic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. And the thing also about it is that it does feel like you're kind of steering this super ship.
Yes.
Because you have to maneuver so much. You do feel like you're a badass ace pilot. Of course, when you play well, you have to refine it. But it does, it is able to kind of carry that feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you hit pause, it has the old Konami pause sound. Yeah, it like
I have forgotten about that.
Little things, man. It's got little touches that I really like something like Thunder Force 6, for example. Shoot 'em up on the PS2. It doesn't look as good. It's a little bit more forgiving on the difficulty, but the reason I'm bringing it up is because much like with Gradius V, they have just enough of the little nods to the previous games in the series to kind of like, where it's not overbearing. It's just a little, hey, remember this? You like that, right? Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, I did. And then we move on. But
it's like, it's people that they know what they're doing. Like they already probably lived through that period and worked on those games. And so, they're just, I imagine that there must be some treasure people that used to work at Konami back when they were doing Gradius. I have to look at the credits. But at least Gradius 3, because that was the time that, most of the treasure guys were at Konami. And I figure that's probably how this game came to be, due to their connections at Konami. But, it's treasure doing Gradius. Like, that's kind of like a match made in heaven. Yeah. And
it's almost all you really need to say.
Yeah, and I believe that, I read an interview that, it's something that they wanted to work on for a long time. Like, they really wanted to do Gradius. And so, to see a developer kind of doing it justice because they're so passionate about the game, it just kind of shows.
Yeah.
If you're not a shooter fan, I don't think this is the game that will convert you.
I agree.
Because it's tough, but there are probably like a lot more accessible games out there.
Yeah.
But if you're a shooter fan, like, you're in for a treat, honestly. I think it's an all around excellent game.
Yeah.
How does it compare to something like R-Type Final?
It feels like it has a little more soul than R-Type Final. One of the problems with R-Type Final that I had was that there were just too many ships. You can unlock up to like 60 ships. And
or 70 or something like that, yeah.
Who knows, man? It's above 50, that's for sure. And like at some point, too much choice actually becomes a detriment. And you're just kind of playing the game to unlock more stuff rather than playing the game to enjoy it and beat it. And that's kind of the issue that I had with R-Type Final. Not that it was a bad game, it's a good game, but Gradius V feels like it has more soul.
But that's something that has been leveled at R-Type for a long time, and I think that's one of the main issues with R-Type. It's just that it just kind of lacks that soul. It's not a warm game, it feels very cold and mechanical, and I think that's part of the design. I think that's what they're trying to go for. Whereas Gradius, it's always felt like with the Vic Viper and stuff, like it has more of an identity.
Yeah.
R-Type is more about like this kind of alien menace.
Yeah.
Where the enemies are kind of like the center stage rather than, the ship or whatever. So, I don't know. Gradius has a story legacy. I don't think that there has been a Gradius in a while, actually.
I think that was the last one, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
No, because there was Gradius Rebirth for the Wii, the Wii Shop, and that was done by M2. And by all accounts, it was really fantastic, just like Contra Rebirth and Castlevania Rebirth. And unfortunately, because the Wii Store is no longer a service, those games are lost until Konami decides to re-release them.
Yeah.
Well, we can cross our fingers.
And I'm pretty sure there's a pachinko machine somewhere out there with Gradius.
Yeah, probably.
One thing that kills me though when I'm playing Gradius, or any game where it's in the future and there's like crazy technology that we couldn't even imagine today. When you have a robot companion, it still sounds like a fucking robot. and I'm playing Gradius V, right? And the robot's like, Vic Viper, but it's kind of like almost female. Anyway, the point is,
it's kind of retrofuturistic. Like, you just have to take it as part of the charm.
But I mean, come on, have we not evolved our voice synthesis technology enough by this time?
I mean, dude, Alexa is already like pretty advanced, and we're still in, the present time. And she convinces me, she tells me have a good weekend. She asks me, if I want to ask her about the weather. So I consider her my pet robot.
She asks you how the Chinese man's doing, right?
Yeah. Has he gotten any good looks lately? Anything like that.
Anyway, yeah, no, that's just something. I'm playing Gradius V, and I'm like, awesome. I love that we haven't
a
evolved
question
that yet.
apropos of nothing, Paul?
Pardon?
Can I ask you a question apropos of nothing?
Absolutely.
Gradius, R-Type, or Thunder Force?
It depends on what you're looking for.
Thunder Force 6, R-Type Final, and Gradius 5. Those like the PS2 ones.
Yeah, if I had to rank them, it's so tough, dude, because Thunder Force 6 is really accessible. It's not that hard. And so you get to see more of the game and you don't get super frustrated. Gradius 5 looks a lot cleaner and in a way is more fun. It's hard to say. I'd put R-Type behind both of them. But like that's kind of where I stand with it.
See, I've always been an R-Type guy. Like, of the three, as far as I've played, I haven't played nearly as much of them as you have, but I've always really enjoyed R-Type, at least the first one.
Yeah. No, it's a great game. It's a classic. There's a good reason you like it, man. But anyway.
I played through R-Type 1 and 2, but I never played through Final, and I know R-Type Delta is super expensive right now. That's the one for the PS1, so it just kind of passed me by.
Oh, yeah.
And you know what? There's tons of other shoot 'em ups to play anyway. There's no need to spend, $100 or whatever it is on R-Type Delta. Good as it's
but then again,
be.
shooters for the most part tend to, appreciate fairly well.
Yeah.
Just because they're so niche. And just R-Type is just one of those.
Why pay $100 for R-Type Delta when you can pay $500 for Hyperduel?
Exactly. Hyperduel. My God. Anyway. Moving on, the last one that I've been playing, which I didn't think I'd like it, and I don't know why, because Ozzy, remember when you recommended Tetris Effect to me?
Yeah.
And I was like, it's Tetris, right? And then then my life changed for the better after playing it.
Yeah, you achieved a higher state of consciousness.
I absolutely did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Same thing with, not same thing, but similar thing with Tetris 99 on the Switch. I wasn't expecting
Tetris Battle Royale.
Exactly. I'm not a Battle Royale guy. Like I don't really like those games. I tried playing Fortnite or Apex Legends. I tried both of them, and I just found that there's a lot of doing nothing. You know what I mean? There's
a lot of running around.
Yeah, a lot of that. And I get it. There's tension and so on and so forth. In any case, Tetris 99 just completely circumvents all of that. Your average game of Tetris 99, I don't think it takes longer than 10 or 15 minutes. And it's a complete revelation as far as Tetris is concerned. One of the things about Tetris is that, if you're starting on level 1 and you're going for a high score, for example, you go level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, and so on, and it can take a while. And when you get to max level and you're really good at it and you can just keep going ad infinitum, I've never played a version of Tetris where the games are so quick. And because it's Tetris, the whole Battle Royale scheme, all the stuff that I talked about that I didn't like about Battle Royale, in third-person shooters, completely gone with Tetris 99. So it's really cool, man. You can pick it up. It takes less than a minute to hook up to a game, for it to find matches, and for it to get you started in the game, which is great, right? You'd think that finding 99 people would take a little while to matchmake. Nope.
Yeah.
Nope. Takes a minute at the most, and then you're playing. And the mechanics are really cool.
Well, Nintendo was very forward-thinking in, kind of securing that, title, particularly exclusive to its Nintendo online service.
Yeah.
And now I think it's going to be released in other platforms, I think. But it's, when I first saw it, my mind couldn't really tell how that would work in practice.
Yeah.
But I guess it did.
No, it really
I guess
did,
it works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they add that element of you all, like, people attack you and you attack other people when you do your lines, correct?
Yeah, the way it works is whenever you can aim for people, right? There's 99 targets, well 98, right? Because you're one of the 99. And if you KO someone, so if you hit 2 lines or 3 lines or 4 lines, you create garbage blocks on their screen. And if the garbage blocks that you create on the other person's screen cause them to lose, you get a KO, right? If you get 2 KOs, then you get a badge. And what the badge does is it kind of levels you up so that you can create even more garbage. However, because you're playing against 98 other people, if other people see that you have a badge or that you have even more than one badge, then you're going to become the target.
Yeah.
Because suddenly you're like, whoa, this guy's got badges. He's going to be powerful. And whenever you kill someone else who has badges, you take their badges.
Oh,
so
snap.
Yeah, it's really cool, man. It becomes this thing where you're like, do I stay really aggressive? Like, do I go really aggressive right off the bat? Do I kind of lay low and then snipe badges? And I've managed to like finish top 30 pretty much every time I play now, but I can't quite crack top 5. It's driving me crazy.
And I must imagine that there are some insane people in there. Like very, very skilled.
Very skilled. Yeah. Like I'm good at Tetris. I'm probably like a 6.5 out of 10. Somewhere like 40 Brady's.
Yeah.
And
but you are also a disciple of the Super Puzzle Fighter, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So you're telling me that I am 80 Brady's out of 100, in terms of Tetris.
I would have given you 60. I would have, because you have managed to beat Tetris Effect, I think, on easy or normal, was it?
Normal, I think. Yeah.
So like you're not bad, dude. And the weird thing about Tetris 99 is that it's like a season of Survivor, right? Where there's one person who's like really aggressive and very good at scheming and so on and so forth. And then there's kind of one person who just kind of hangs back, rides their coattails, and maybe they win at the end. There is room for you, Ozzy, in Tetris 99 to just kind of hang back, not make yourself a target, just, complete your lines, randomly attack other people, don't make any enemies. And then at the end, you can swoop in, take some badges, and then maybe get aggressive, right?
Yeah.
So
it's incredible how they were able to translate the survival mechanics into something like Tetris.
Dude,
which makes me think, what else could they do with Tetris?
I will never cease
could they
to
do
be
survival
amazed.
horror with Tetris?
Yeah.
I don't know. At this point, anything is possible.
Honestly,
I wouldn't put it past them.
I will never cease to be amazed at the fact that, what are we now, 40, 30 years later, they're still making Tetris like the most popular thing on the planet.
Dude, Tetris is gonna outlive all of us. I can
really
guarantee
is.
you that.
I'm waiting for that Tetris JRPG, man. Like, I know it's coming.
Listen, when our civilization is long gone, there's going to be some alien civilization that's gonna dig up our remains, and they're gonna find a little handheld that plays Tetris.
Oh, I mean,
and
they're gonna find
be like,
the.
this is probably how they pass their time.
They're gonna find the Gulf War Game Boy Game Boy that's in World of
most
Nintendo
likely.
or something.
No, dude, Tetris is just, it's a timeless design, similar to, other games like, I don't know, Pachisi or something, or Checkers. It's just a timeless design. Like, they got it right. Every single part fits, no pun intended. And I think that it's so accessible to a regular player that, it makes for its popularity. And the fact that there are developers out there trying to do something different with Tetris, I think it's really exciting. I don't think that there are many out there trying to do something different with Puyo Puyo.
No.
They're just, doing different licenses. Or whatever,
exactly.
But Tetris, it's kind of like really at this point, it's like a human, like, cultural achievement at this point.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I see it. Which in some way I feel like it's what Tetsuya Mizuguchi was trying to achieve with Tetris Effect. It was just kind of like saying, like, Tetris is all of us. It's inside all of us, and it's all this connection that we have.
I am Tetris.
And if I hadn't played Tetris Effect, I'd be almost laughing at what you're saying right now, Ozzy. But
you have played Tetris Effect.
But I have played Tetris Effect, and I'm nodding sagely instead. I'm like, yes, it is part of all of us.
Yeah, it's like the word I was looking for is part of our cultural heritage. Like, it's like mankind's cultural heritage, and the fact that it came from the Soviet Union, at a time that they were very repressed. To me, it just speaks about something brilliant. It's just. The Tetris story is gonna be made into a movie at some point.
I think
I'm a little bit worried about that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they did tease, apparently, like, this was years ago now, but they had said at some point that they were working on, like, a live-action Tetris movie.
Oh my god,
sort.
You're right, they were, and I laughed so hard.
And it's probably gonna have Adam Sandler in it.
I guess it's in development hell now.
Well, that's good. That's where it belongs. Let's not kid ourselves. Come on.
Yeah, it's the same thing with the Akira remake. There are some things you just shouldn't try.
Yeah.
So
here's the other thing is that I think what I've learned from this conversation that we've had is that I don't know if there's any point in doing this show, because I think what we've learned is that all video games, no matter how big or how small, are Tetris. Tetris is all.
With that, Region Free Gamers After Dark is signing off.
We are Tetris. This world is Tetris.
We're gonna wrap this
Artie.
up now.
Okay, Artie. I think that's our cue.
It's like
anyway,
like
to wrap it up, though, we gotta wrap it up.
It's like They Live, but when you put on the glasses, everybody is Tetraminos.
You had to get that one out there, right?
Yeah. That was worth it.
All right. So anyway, Tetris 99, it's free. So like if you have a Nintendo Online subscription, like you have to get it. And
yeah, there's no reason not to own Tetris 99.
Yeah, and there's DLC for local multiplayer for 8 people. And now I'm like, yep, that's how they're going to get me, because that's totally going to happen here in my house. We're going to have local 8-player Tetris.
I need to look this up again, but apparently there are plans to release some sort of physical version of it.
Yeah, maybe.
With
I don't know,
like
man.
some sort of DLC or exclusive stuff. I don't know what the deal is.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Like
there
a season
is.
pass maybe or something?
No, I think they were planning on releasing some kind of physical version. I went to their website today because I had to read the instructions. Which, by the way, like, I know I just said wrap it up like friggin' 20 times, but like, I'm a little bit tired of games that don't come with instructions, and you kind of have to go look it up.
Yeah, fuck those games. You know what happened? That happened to me with Collection of Mana, which, by the way, I've also been playing, so I don't know why I didn't talk about that. It happened to me with Seiken Densetsu 3, or I guess now it's called like Trials of Mana. That game is complex. It's complicated. Like, there are things that you should know how to do, and it brought like an 80-page book, originally. Switch version, nothing
guys.
at all whatsoever. You have to go to an FAQ. Like, I went, on what Square said that you could link to, and it literally was like, up is to move, down is to go down. Thanks, whatever. Guys. Like, I don't need that. I need you to tell me about the freaking mechanics. And the least you could have done is just translate the freaking manual. Like, come on, guys. Like, seriously. Like, I get trying to save money by not printing it out, or, saving trees or whatever, but there's no excuse for just not bringing, some sort of manual at all. Yeah, so fuck that.
On that positive note. No, Sorry, man, I'm the one who brought it up. Like, I had to, we were just finishing up, and I was talking about how great Tetris 99 is, and we were all happy, and we were all Tetris, and then I'm like,
we are all Tetris.
But you know what it is about Tetris 99? I've been spoiled by Tetris Effect and how it looks, and going to Tetris 99 and seeing how plain it looks, I don't know. Maybe it's like superficial of me or shallow, but
Well, it's not maybe.
it's kind of
it
hard,
is.
man. Yeah.
You know, we could have just ended this on my
yeah.
amazing They Live reference, and now...
I know. Now it's been
now-
ruined. Sorry, Arnie.
Listen, I see a horse here, and I don't think he's breathing anymore. So,
Why don't you try kicking it a couple times?
so
All right, everyone. Thanks for listening. This has been the Region Free Gamers podcast. You can talk to us on Instagram. We are at Region Free Gamers Podcast. We're on Twitter as well, where because of the character limit, we are merely Region Free Gamer.
Yep.
And we've got a website now, regionfreegamers.com. So check us out there. Ozzy's been writing some good stuff to share with you guys there, addendums to some of our episodes. Strongly recommend you check it out. And yeah, thanks guys. As always, a lot of fun.
Peace.